Hey gamers, it's Wintermute here from Grind This Game, and this is going to be hopefully a short guide on morale and stress and how to manage them. So the first thing you need to know about morale is that it kind of has an interplay with stress and jobs. So if you open up your jobs menu in the top right here, you can kind of see that each tier of jobs, see up top here you have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Each of these tiers has more and more morale requirements. So tier 1 has a morale requirement of 2 plus 2. Tier 2 has plus 4. Tier 3 has plus 8. And what this means is that if you meet or exceed a duplicant's morale requirements, their stress will go down. But if you don't meet the requirements, like let's say you had a dupe in the minor job here, which requires plus 8 morale, and the morale was only like 2, their stress would begin to go up. So you can kind of see that in here. And now some of the later jobs, way up here, and like the astronaut, you need plus 30 morale, which is quite a bit. So a rule of thumb is to make sure you're not advancing your dupes too fast. Make sure you have sources of morale before you advance them. And I'll show you some quick and easy ways to get morale. So one of the first is the room bonuses that you can get. So if you check out, there's a bunch of overlays in the top right here, and if you click the one that looks like a little bed, you can see all the various room overlays. And if you hover over each of these room overlays, you can kind of see what the requirements are and how much morale you'll get from each room. So very early game, some of the easiest things to build to get morale is the latrine, which I've set up here, this little room here. All it requires is a wash basin and an outhouse. The wash basin is under medicine, and the outhouse is under plumbing. So with those two enclosed in a room, and there's a minimum size. If you look at the latrine, it says minimum size 12 tiles. So that's counting these little blocks here. So this room happens to be, let's see, 35 tiles, so it meets the requirement. It has a maximum size as well. Maximum size 64 tiles. So if the dupes use this facility, they're gonna get a +1 to their morale. And the way you enclose a room is just with a pneumatic door like this, or you can use an airlock door, which look like these two down here: manual airlock, mechanized airlock. But you get the pneumatic door kind of right off the beginning. Now the next easiest way to get morale is building a mess hall, and all that requires is a mess table, which is found under furniture, right here, enclosed in a room, and the mess hall gives you a +3 to morale. So just by building these two simple buildings, you're going to have dupes that have +4 morale, and that'll allow you to kind of get into this job tier here, which is +4, tier 2. So you could train them through all of these jobs and probably not worry about stress too much. So there's other rooms that get bonuses as well. Let's see here. The Great Hall is actually a pretty simple upgrade to the Mess Hall, and it'll give you +6 morale, which is quite a lot early game. So you'll want to build a Great Hall early on. All it requires is a mess table, a decor item, which has +20 decor, and a recreational building. So here I have a mess hall here. It has a water cooler as the recreation building, and to build the water cooler, you get it really early on in the game. This is the research tier, or research screen. So you can get the jobs research early on without building any kind of... you have to build the basic research building to get this, which I'll show in a second, but that allows you to build a water cooler. And then you also need to put a piece of art in it, and that's under artistic expression. And I recommend the sculpting block over the painting early on, because when they actually decorate the sculpting block, which is this thing, well, they've already decorated this one, but if you go under furniture, it starts out as just a piece of rock like this, and then an artist will come along and decorate it. So a sculpting block that's been decorated will give you the morale requirements to get a mess hall pretty easily. You can do it with a somewhat crappy artist, but that's going to give you your +6 morale. So I recommend building the Great Hall early on. There's a few other buildings in the room overlay that kind of help you out. The massage clinic, which is just a decor item, which is like a statue or a painting, plus a massage table, which is this thing right here. Now, if you have to use the massage table, it probably means that you've made a mistake, or you've kind of gone into the job tier too quickly, or you're not managing stress well enough. It's kind of used as a last resort. If you're having to use this a lot, you're going to be wasting a lot of power, and there's easier ways to get their stress down, so I recommend avoiding that unless it's an emergency. So let's just keep looking at our rooms here. So there's upgraded versions of the bathroom as well. The latrine has an upgraded version called the washroom, and it gives a +2 morale instead of +1. And it requires kind of indoor plumbing, which looks like this, like a sink and a lavatory. And that'll give you, as you can see here, it gives the washroom bonus +2. That comes a little bit later in the game, not too much later, but if you look under your research tab, you can see, I'll show you here where you can actually see where that happens. So it's only in the second tier of research here. You get your lavatory and you get your sink. So that's some of the rooms that you can use to get morale bonuses. There's also ways to get it from food. So if you click your consumables menu up in the top here, you can, if you hover over each type of food, you can see how much morale it's going to give. So some of the really early food has a -1, so it's actually bad for the morale. You kind of want to avoid those, like a mush bar, -1. Raw meat is -1. Muckroot, which you only have kind of during the beginning, is -1. But if you actually cook the mush bar into a mush fry, it goes to morale 0, so it's kind of neutral. And bristle berries, which are kind of an early food you can make, have a morale of 0. And straight mushrooms have a morale of 0. So that's probably, or also liceloaf, which is made from the meallice plant, is 0. But if you actually cook up the mushrooms, you're going to get to fried mushrooms, which is +1 morale. And if you cook the bristleberry into a grissleberry, it's going to be +1. So this is probably what you want to aim for. Aim for these early game, and then these kind of mid game. And then as you progress, there's some really nice food up here. Frost buns are made out of sleet wheat, which you find in the ice biomes. It's +4. And then what else do we have here? Omelets, which are made out of eggs, is +4. Berry sledge is quite good. And then stuffed berry is just bristle blossom plus pinch of peppernut, which are these little plants down here. They look like this. They grow in the wild, but you can also grow them with polluted water. So let's go back into our food menu here. So stuffed berries are really good, but then way up here there's the creme de la creme. The best food in the game is probably the pepper bread, which is +16 to morale. So it's a really crazy way to get morale. And then the barbecue, which is also +16. But the barbecue also gives another bonus, which I'll talk about in a bit, which reduces stress. So it's probably actually the best. So pepper bread is made out of sleet wheat and pinch peppernut. So that's pinch peppernut, and then sleet wheat grows in the ice biome, and it kind of looks like this. So you can harvest it in the wild, or you can try to grow it domestically, but it's much harder to grow domestically. So it's kind of a late game food. And then meat comes from creatures that just get old and die or drown. So here's the meat that these guys have made from just living in this little pocket here for a very long time. Hatches also make meat. That's these little creatures up here. These little guys, when they die of old age, they'll turn into meat. They also lay eggs, which you can crack open and make into omelets as well. So that's ways to get morale from food. An extremely easy way to get morale is to use your schedule, which you can find in the top left here. And if you schedule them some downtime, they get various morale bonuses from different downtimes. So let's just see here. If you give them 2 shifts of downtime, they'll get +1 morale. And then for each additional shift, they'll get +1 up to a maximum of +4 morale. So if you give them 5 downtime, they're going to get +4 morale. And that's a really easy way to give them morale early on if you need it. It means they're not going to be working as much, but at least you'll be getting the morale bonus. So you have to be a little bit patient because they won't be able to get as much done in a cycle, which is like a day. So that's a really extremely easy way to get morale. They'll also get morale just from being social. When they kind of pass by each other, they might have a little chit-chat. Here, that just happened, pleasant chit-chat. So that'll give them +1 to morale. And that just kind of happens organically, as long as they're kind of walking by each other. And then decor is another way to get morale. And decor is controlled by decor items like paintings. This painting gives +24 decor. These statues give decor. Some tiles give decor. Gold tiles give quite a bit of decor. And you can see all that through the decor menu, which is in the top right here, or F8 on PC. And it shows you green is good, red is bad. And if you hover over, you can see what the decor is from all the items that are around it. So right here, the decor is 528, and it's getting it from metal tile, it's getting it from a masterpiece, which is the art, it's getting it from the sculptures, it's getting it from the comfy bed. And you can kind of just mouse around and see which buildings and things give positive decor, but also negative decor. Things like materials on the ground are negative decor. Heavy watt wire, which you'll use later on, is really negative decor. So if they hang around in this area too much, they're going to get stressed out. But I'll just mention that if you have a 0 decor, you're going to get a +1 to morale. And there's various tiers between 0 and 120, but if you have 120 decor or more, like right here we've got 169, you get a +12 to morale from a high decor. There's in between notches between there where you'll get some, and I'll just show in a report here. If you go into the vitals menu, you can see each of your dupes, and if you check out the morale column, you can kind of hover over. The first number is their current morale, and the second number is the morale expectation. So a high number over the second number is a good thing. And if we hover over, let's see who's got the highest morale here. Gabe. Gabe has a 50 morale, but he only needs 20. And we can see he's getting it from various things here. So every duplicate just gets +1 for being a duplicate. A superb meal is +16, as I mentioned. The bedroom's +2, the washroom's +2, the great hall's +6. A 5-shift break is +4. Gorgeous decor, which is 120 decor or more, is +12. And then there's some more advanced ways later game where you can get morale, like playing video games, dancing. I'll just show those two buildings here. So the arcade cabinet, which comes much later in the game, like I said, will give you morale. Dancing around this jukebot will give you some. And is it almost downtime? I'm going to speed the game up so we can get to the downtime so you can see them kind of having fun. The espresso maker also gives them, I think it's +2. Let's see if we can find a dupe that has had espresso recently. Let's see. Don't see any. I think it's +2 though. Anyway, showering is +3 morale, and it's pretty easy to make showers. You just put them in, and they do require a lot of clean water, and they output polluted water, but it gives them +3, which is pretty good and pretty easy to make early on. Just make sure you have a good source of water before you build them. So that's how decor affects morale. There's also ways that stress can be affected directly. Now, separate from morale, I'll talk about stress now. So there's many ways to get good stress, or ways to lower stress. And some of it's from just chit-chatting. When they walk by each other, they'll talk. Let me just check if they're on break time here. Oh, they're on break time now. So they're going to be down here drinking coffee, dancing. playing video games, drinking from the water cooler, having a good time. It's pretty fun to watch them. Now you have to make sure your downtime is long enough so they actually get time to do this. If your downtime is only two blocks, they might not get enough time to go to the bathroom, eat, and also socialize. So there's other ways that stress can be affected directly. If they eat barbecue, which you make out of meat, let's just see, I'm making it here in one of these grills right here. It requires meat and pinch pepper nut. Let's just scroll over here. So meat and pinch pepper nut, and they get the soul food bonus, which is going to lower their stress by 15% per cycle, which is pretty awesome. They can also get an appreciated stress lowering effect, and that's if one dupe is working and the other dupe kind of watches them. They get reduced stress when they sleep at night. And you can see all this if you go into the vitals and you double click on a dupe. You can see there's some interesting things in here. So I'm just going to pause the game here. You can see the morale. So that's kind of what was shown in that vitals menu earlier on, but for an individual dupe. But you can also hover over stress, and you can see they have lowering stress from a few things here. A new friend, which is like when you add a new dupe. I think that lasts 3 cycles. And high morale is -20. There's also a high morale that shows up sometimes that has -10. -10 is a good thing. -20 is also a good thing, but it depends on how high the morale is relative to their expectations. Let's go also into the skills menu. And you can see kind of an overall stress from the last day. So we can see what it's doing kind of globally to them. Sleeping is -1.73. Chit chat. Oh, the narcoleptics, a certain trait, they get it from napping. Here's some appreciation. Let's just look through a few other dupes here. You can look at their stress and also their stress here. So they, same thing, minus from sleeping. And there's a bunch of effects that add to their stress. Now my base is pretty far along and stress is pretty much 0. So it's kind of hard to show the negative ones, but I can talk about them briefly. So to see all the stress of all the dupes, you can, up in the top left, there's a little brain icon, and you can hover over it and you can see the stress of each dupe. Now all my dupes are at 0, but ways that they can get positive stress is low oxygen. So if they're in a room that doesn't have that much oxygen, they're going to get that. And that's going to be +10 to their stress, +10%. They can get a popped eardrum if they go in a room that has high pressure. So if we put them in a room, let's say up here, which has 8.3 kilograms of oxygen pressure, they would get the popped eardrum stress, the bad stress effect, which is +20%. As mentioned, low morale can be +3%. And I think it can get even worse if you don't meet their expectations by a long shot. If they get cold, either cold air or cold water, they can get stressed out, and you'll see that they're chilly, and it'll be +10%. They can also get soggy feet. If they walk through a little bit of water, they're going to get soggy feet, which stresses them out. They can get sopping wet if they actually go kind of underwater, walk right through water. And if it's too warm, they'll get the toasty surroundings, which is also will add to their stress. I'm not positive about the exact temperatures, but you generally want your duplicants to be around 20 to 35 degrees. Down below like 5 degrees, they're going to start to freeze, and roughly around +50, 45 plus, they're going to start to stress out from toasty surroundings. They can also get burnt if it gets way too hot, and they'll take damage, but that's not necessarily stress related. And if they do happen to get super stressed out, you can send them into the massage table, like I said. And when they're on this machine inside of a massage clinic, the massage table alone will lower stress, but if it's in this clinic, which has, let's just see here, massage clinic requires Massage table, a decor item, and no machinery, plus a minimum size of 12. It'll reduce their stress even more when they're in this room. To show you the various room bonuses around here, just as a bit of a summary. So we've got the bedroom, +2, which is the upgraded bedroom. It just requires a fancy plastic bed, which you get later on in the game. I didn't build a basic barracks, but I could show that. That's just a cot. I'll just quickly build that. Let's just see here. We need a cot. I'll do that out of granite. And it needs to be enclosed in a room, and that's pretty much it. So once they build that, we can see that what that room gives. So here we go. Now we have a barracks. It's just +1 morale. And if you have at least one fancy bed, it's +2. So I didn't want this guide to get too long, but that kind of... I'll link to a guide I did earlier on, which is a little bit older now, but it goes into quite a bit more detail. It doesn't talk about morale at all, because that mechanic was more recently added. But I think it covers some of the basics. I'll also link to the Wikipedia page for this, or the wiki for this game, which for the morale page and the stress page, so you can see kind of a list of all the things that can affect them, negative and positive. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I'll be happy to help you out. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.